I'm Matt Bishar with NAREIT.com here in Washington, D.C. at the Marriott Marquis for the 2016 NAREIT REITWise Law, Accounting, and Finance Conference. Joining me is Nancy Anderson, Chief Financial Officer and Vice President of Financial Reporting with the Real Property Association of Canada. Nancy, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, Matt.
Now, can you start by giving us a quick overview of the health of Canada's real estate investment market?
Sure. Overall, real estate fundamentals are pretty strong in most regions. However, market sentiment is being tempered by economic headwinds. The Canadian dollar is the lowest it's been in 15 years. Oil and commodity prices have been in significant decline. Oil prices are the lowest we've seen in decades. So by property type, retail is seen as particularly challenging. The failure of Target in the Canadian marketplace perhaps cautioned some U.S. retailers from entering the Canadian market with the same vigor or at the same speed that they might have otherwise. However, it is a bit of a regional story. Toronto and Vancouver markets are still pretty strong. So I'd say overall, pricing is expected to be flat to softening in some regions.
And for Canadian REITs, what do you think is going to be the dominant trend for the rest of this year?
So, interesting. I would say there's a couple. And what those would be in my mind would be that a lot of REITs, or some REITs, are trading at a discount to NAV, which is a challenge and causes management teams to think, how can we grow? How can we grow internally? There haven't been a lot of M&As or IPOs in the last year. Another one, perhaps linked to that, is that some REITs are doing strategic reviews and looking at what do we do now. And I'd say a third issue that's probably a lot more sensitive is succession planning. So a lot of our REITs are run by the founding CEOs, and that's an aging population, so there's a lot of questions, and as I said, sensitive questions of what to do with succession planning. So, but on a positive side, it'll be interesting to see what happens in August when the GICS starts its real estate sector as the 11th headline. So that'll be interesting to see what happens with that.
And lastly, we've done a number of these videos, and it seems like every time we talk about the convergence of international standards, where does that stand, and what impact is sort of this ongoing question have?
That's a good question, and we've talked about it several times. So IFRSs are pretty prolific in the accounting community across the world. However, there's still some significant countries that have not adopted IFRS, the US being one. Russia, India, Japan are all considering implementing IFRS. The US, I think, is going almost a semi-convergence on a standard-by-standard basis. You look at the significant joint projects that have taken place, and I think what we're seeing is that there is some divergence that will perhaps always continue to happen. Leases was not completely converged. Financial instruments standard was not converged. And I think that if I can add to the Canadian experience is that it has been challenging, I think, for Canada having IFRS. Probably different than the issue would be for the US is because we are such a small country, and we are sometimes the first movers on IFRS standards. That's pretty challenging because we kind of have to strike out with less guidance maybe in some time, so it's quite challenging. So are we ever going to have global convergence? Probably not, but I think there'll be a lot of semi-convergence happening.
Great. Nancy, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Matt.
For more from REITWise 2016, be sure to visit REIT.com.